Alrighty, so today we're going to finish up looking at the last 6 game of match week number 35 as part of part number 2, and pretty much all of these games are a Western Conference game except for one game that is actually an interconference matchup, though this one was not an interconference matchup last year. This was actually a matchup in the Western Conference, and I actually went to this one last year at Lumen Field between the Seattle Sounder and Nashville SC, and similar to how I saw the game at Lumen Field last year, this game kind of ended up a little bit similar, though there was no honorable Godoy goal to win it for Nashville this time, as it ended in a 0-0 draw. Though early on in the first half, yeah, if you missed the first 25 minutes of this game, you're in luck because not much really happened in the first 25 minutes. It was a pretty stale first 25 minutes to start this game. In fact, the first shot didn't came until the 25th minute, and it was actually a shot on target. It saw Fry deny Mukhtar from close range before Surge would cross it wide from close. The first shot of the game for Seattle saw Alex Rodon had a shot that was denied by Willis in the 33rd minute, and then in the same minute, Ladero would cross it just wide from close range. And despite the fact that there was not much happening in the first 25 minutes, all of a sudden the chances were starting to come for both of these teams. Atencio then hits one right to Willis in the 42nd minute, and we do head to halftime with the score scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Chu would hit one right to Willis. The post would then deny Aber on the header, but then Aber thought he put the ball into the back of net in the 60th minute. But they go to VAR to see whether or not if Aber was in an offside position when the ball was played, and he was. So yeah, the goal of course was disallowed for offside. Though I would like to say that Joe Willis is probably the most relieved man out of all those Nashville players, and certainly the Nashville fans, that goal was disallowed, because yeah, that was not a great goal for him to concede. Like that shot from Aber wasn't really hit very hard, and it was also toward near post. Yeah, that's one that you expect Joe Willis to save, and he's very lucky. The fact that VAR left him off the hook of a bad goal that he would have conceded. But in the 61st minute, Ladero would cross it wide from close range before Christian Rodon missed wide from close as well. Seattle was definitely stepping up the pressure. They were looking to get the opening goal. Shu had a chance to do so, but he missed wide from long range. And really, as the time winds down, you just kind of had a sense that fatigue was starting to catch up for both of these teams. There wasn't really much chances once again, though Bunbury did have a chance to give Nashville a late winner, but he puts it wide, and that came off of a rare Nashville counterattack that actually worked out. I mean, Seattle did a really good job in terms of neutralizing this Nashville counterattack. And notice how I didn't even mention Mukhtar's name a lot, and they did a really good job in terms of shutting down Hani Mukhtar in this one. And as a result, they get a point out of this game, a 0-0 draw in this one against Nashville. And the shots in this one, 13 shots for the 5 that Nashville has, 1 shots on goal for the 3 that Seattle had, 7 shots off target for the 2 that Nashville has, 3 shots that was blocked for the 2 that Nashville has, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Seattle has in this one. So certainly Seattle will be the more happier side coming out of this one, because not a lot of team can head to Geodis Park this season to get out a point. But for Nashville, again, they still have not looked that good. They kind of look like almost similar to the team that coming into the Leeds Cup, a team that they haven't really played that well, and that when you look at how the Eastern Conference is this season, as much as I mentioned Nashville multiple times as a team to be threatening, the way that they're playing, I don't think it's going to be enough if they want to go deep in the playoffs, especially with how there's just so much more good teams that are just hitting form at the right time, and potentially, if they do play against Nashville, they could have a favorable result, despite the fact that Nashville has shown before. Well, I think the only thing I will say about Nashville that could be in their luck is that they've shown in the Leeds Cup in a tournament kind of style that they thrive, with them making all the way to the final, and we'll see whether or not they can do it again once they do make it to the playoffs. That being said, moving on in the next match, it's the soccer capital derby between St. Louis City and Sporting KC, and for a while this one actually looked close. I mean, this actually was a closely battle, and you could say that Sporting KC had multiple chances to get the opening goal in this one, and then as soon as St. Louis scored a goal, the floodgates were completely blown open in this game. Now, early on in the first half, Rosario would hits it wide, or hits it right to Berkey. He didn't actually hits that one wide. He actually hits that one right to Berkey. Before Showy would miss wide from close range. I thought it was a strong start for Sporting. There was no doubt that Sporting KC played much better in this game. I mean, I know the score lines doesn't show that, but I really think that this is again another one of those games where the scoreline didn't really dictate of how this was actually not a relatively evening match game for the first 70 minutes at least. But in the 7th minute, the first shot for St. Louis did see Vasilev hit one right to Melia before Jackson would hit one right to Melia again in the 12th minute. St. Louis definitely has got into this game after a bit of a slow start. Though on the other end, Melia would deny Klaus from close before Berkey would deny Showery from close range. And despite some good opportunity for both of these teams, both goalkeepers definitely on their game up to that point, and we head to halftime scoreless between these two Midwestern team. Now in the second half, Gutierrez would puts it wide from long range before Tommy would puts it wide also from long range. There was then a crazy sequence when, or actually a crazy sequence for Sporting KC as Rodaha had a shot that was actually blocked by his own teammate, but somehow it was still able to recycle in a perfect path to Showery, and yeah, Showery he's got to bury this one. I mean, I know he struck the post. I know he was kind of unlucky in terms of it. In fact, I think Berkey actually got a hand to that one. I have no idea how Berkey was able to get himself back because, originally from the original shot from Rodelha, he actually had to dive because he was thinking that that one was gonna go on target. But yeah, for Showy, that's one that he's definitely gonna be thinking about, especially after how this game would turns out because that would have been 1-0 in favor of Sporting KC, and who knew how this game would have turned out. But again, Sporting they had the momentum. They were looking for the opener goal, but Berkey says no. He would rob Ndembe on a point blank header in the 65th minute, and it was pretty clear that Berkey was on his game again. I mean, there's a reason why Roman Berkey is probably going to be contending for goalkeeper of the year and maybe even winning the goalkeeper of the year now, knowing that Georgi Petrovic is no longer in the running for that. Then the 73rd minute, St. Louis scored. It's a Danaren. He scored from Lubin to make it 1-0 in favor of St. Louis. That was kind of against the run of play because up to that point, Sporting KC were the better team. And as I said, little do we know, this is when the dam really broke for Sporting KC defense because not long after, Garrett Stroud would score here to make it 2-0 in favor of St. Louis. It was a terrible turnover from Sporting KC, and this is also where St. Louis was once again showing that relentless press that they have done throughout the season under Bradley Carnell. But little do we know that press definitely worked out well in this one because, yeah, Sporting KC for a spell up here, they had no answer in terms of playing out of that press. And it happened again in the 80th minute as João Klaus would score from Leuven to make it 3-0 in favor of St. Louis. That attacking sequence all came from Sporting KC play right into the press of St. Louis. And again, the floodgates just completely blown open. Sporting had no answer in terms of dealing with the relentless press. And then before I even finished writing that, St. Louis made it 4-0. And it's João Klaus again. He scored from Stroud to make it 4-0 in favor of St. Louis. Not only that is going to be contention and maybe the goal of the week, but maybe even a contention for goal of the year. I mean, this was just absolute filth for João Klaus to the highest order. The fact that he's I mean I don't know if he meant to kind of make that first touch kind of bounce up in the air like that, but the fact that he was able to make that first touch and bounce that one all in the air and still able to somehow find enough to strike that one. And keep in mind when that ball bounced up in the air, it was kind of behind him a little bit. So the fact that he was still able to curl that one into the back net and past Melia, I mean, that is just some world class stuff. And we have seen Joe Klaus have scored a lot of amazing goals, but that one is probably the best that he have scored so far this season. But yeah, that made it 4-0 in favor of St. Louis. Unfortunately, the clean sheet did came to an end in the 3rd minute of stoppage time as William Agata ruins the clean sheet for St. Louis as he scored from Showery to make it 4-1 in this one. But that was really just a consolation goal as in the end, St. Louis they win 4-1 in this one. And with this win, they officially clinched the top spot in the Western Conference, and they are the first team ever in MLS history to win the Western Conference in their expansion season, or win their respective conference in their respective season. And they're also now just 2 points away of breaking LAFC record for the most point an expansion team has had in their expansion season. And I have no doubt that they're definitely on point to break that record. And that, yeah, again, it's just been a magical run for St. Louis. And that, I know there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be saying that, well, can they sustain that as we head into the postseason? I think they could, and especially with the way that they have playing so well at home this season, and knowing the fact that they're going to have a home cooking pretty much throughout the playoffs. I mean, this is going to be a team that is going to be tough to beat. Though, again, I do understand why there are some doubters and saying that, obviously it's an expansion team. This is going to be like the first time for a lot of these players in the playoffs, and we'll see whether that experience can come through. But I truly believe St. Louis is cooking something very special. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to try to do something the 98 Chicago Fire team did, which is win MLS Cup in the expansion season. I mean, that would just be an incredible Cinderella run that we haven't seen in a long time, and I didn't think it was going to happen. But I do believe that this team could be a threat in the Western Conference. Especially, there are still a lot of question of which team could be the beat in the West. I still feel like if St. Louis gets to play at home as they are going to throughout the playoffs, they could really be the team to beat. And it's hard to say it's hard to believe that is to say consider this is a team that just came into the league this season. But that being said, moving on in the next match, and oh, by the way, I didn't even mention that for Sporting KC, yeah, this is a devastating loss, and one that it's going to be tough for them to recover. I mean, the only good news is that I think for the decision day game they play against Minnesota, and if that is one of those games that could decide the playoff hope for both of those teams, I'm pretty sure Sporting KC is going to do so. But yeah, they're definitely falling behind the standings again, and with the way that they've also played some of the most game out of any teams. Yeah, there's still teams below them and above them that has a game in hand, and that it's hard to see Sporting KC potentially mount a comeback. Well, they need to mount a miraculous comeback and pretty much cannot afford to lose any more games for their last two games if they wanted to make the playoffs this season. But that being said, moving on in the next match, speaking of a team that seems like their playoff hope is dwindling, and that, yeah, for Austin, this free fall has just been incredible. And I think eventually I am probably going to think about making a video talk about the absolute free fall that this Austin FC team has had. I mean, this all started in the Leagues Cup tournament with them were heavy favorites of winning their group against two relatively weak Liga MX team. They obviously didn't move on into the next round. They finished bottom of that group, and really, it feels like that kind of moment, that embarrassing moment, has really cascaded into the league form too. Because yeah, we talk about a lot of rock bottom moment for Austin this season. I mean, I guess this is probably the rock bottom moment. And yet, the funny thing about this for Austin is that despite this is a rock bottom moment, because Houston and Dallas got a draw in their game in the Texas Derby. That means Austin FC was able to win the Copa Tias despite the fact that this is supposed to be the worst moment and a rock bottom moment of their club, losing 1-0 to the Colorado Rapids. Now, early on, not much chances early, and to be fair, not to disrespect Colorado, I think Colorado has played well. I mean, Chris Little has really done a good job in an interim basis, though again, maybe that has something to do with the new head coach, or the new interim head coach boost that Colorado is clearly getting in these first couple of games. But that being said, the shots were only 1-0 through 15 minutes for Austin. Pereira would then pulls it wide from close, and the first shot for the Rapids came in the 23rd minute when Bassett heads it wide from the corner. And with how hot Cole Bassett has been, you thought that he was going to bury another one and score for the third game running. But Illich then denied Rigoni on the free kick before Bombito puts it high and wide on from the corner. But if you're going to keep giving Colorado chances from the set piece, eventually you're going to burn. Because, as much as Colorado has still struggled to create chances on open play, they're still a team that is deadly in terms of set pieces. And they show you why in the 41st minute when they score the opening goal of this game. It's Maxo scoring from Connor Rowland to make it 1-0 in favor of Colorado. I'm gonna repeat what I said back in that moving forward series talk about the Colorado Rapids. If there is one glimmer of hope and one positive coming out of this disastrous season, it's really Connor Rowland. I mean, he has really took that Jack Price road to a treat, to a point where I know when Jack Price does return, he probably could be back in the 11, but it'll be interesting to see what the next head coach is going to do with both of those guys are considered to be two of the best dead ball specialists and especially two guys that are very underrated in terms of the position that they play in the league. And again, as I said, the bread and butter that and again for the Rapids, that's kind of their thing. They love to score off of set pieces and off of corner, and they did it here to make it 1-0, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Now in the second half, not much happened to the start of the second half, which favored Colorado, but again, that's just kind of a big indictment to Austin because for a team that is an absolute free fall right now and trying to end this free fall and try to stop this bleeding, it doesn't seem like they're likely to do so. And I know they didn't have Dreyusi in this game, and I mentioned that loss that they had against well, they didn't actually lost, but they drew in that game against the Galaxy, and they choke in a spectacular way in that game against the Galaxy. But what hurts even more is Dreyusi going down with an injury, and that we see how Dreyusi is really. I know he has kind of had an underwhelming season, but at times he was really the only one that's holding the glue to this attack, and without him, it's not a big surprise. Austin looked absolutely lifeless going forward on the attack. But in the 71st minute, Illich would deny Bruins, but the ball did recycle. And another attacking sequence did see Illich rob Rigoni, but then it also fall kindly to Will Bruin. In fact, it fall right into the doorstep of Will Bruin, but he skies it. And I think that sequence pretty much sums up Los Verdes' season and sums up why this team is in a free fall right now. Because when you have those kind of opportunity, and I've said this before, when you're a bad team and you're a team that isn't in a free fall right now, you are not going to get the luck that you have in that sequence. I mean, they just didn't get that luck that they needed to score the goal, and that yeah, Colorado escaped from almost conceding one there. Though on the other end, the Stuver would then deny Harris from close range before Maxo trying to score another goal from a corner, but he hits it wide this time. Illich then denied Pereira from long range before Lima hits one right to Illich. Austin finally started to show some fight, but still, most of these chances were low percentage shots. It was easily dealt by the Colorado netminder Illich. But in the third minute of stoppage time, Colorado almost made it 2-0. If it wasn't for Stuver robbing Navarro, who tried to put this game on ice as he was in on goal. But in the end, Colorado does hold on to win 1-0 in this one. And the shots in this one, 6 shots committed, 13 that Austin had, 5 shots on goal for the free that Colorado has, 5 shots off target for the free that the Rapids had, no shots that was blocked for the free that Austin has, and possession-wise, 64% possession compared to 36% possession that Colorado has in this game. And like I said, I mean, Austin, I know they're still in the fight for the playoffs, but when you look at how they've been playing ever since the embarrassment that they had in the League Cup, you just sense that it's not going to happen. And now the big question is what is Austin going to do in terms of Josh Wolf? Because I've been hearing the Wolf out kind of drum being banged very loud in the Austin fan base, and that we talk about a lot of head coaches that is in the hot seat, and I won't be surprised by the time when we get to the end of the season we might see more head coaches being let go as we have seen before at the end of the season. Maybe Josh Wolf might be the next one to go because he's definitely under a lot pressure, especially with how bad Austin has looked ever since the embarrassment they suffer in the Leeds Cup. But that being said, moving on in the next game is the Galaxy and the Portland Timbers. And I gotta say, the Galaxy, these last couple of games, it's been much must watch TV. Like if you're a neutral, I think if you want to see a game that has tons of goals and tons of action, you gotta tune into LA Galaxy game. And I think in some way this is kind of the Galaxy that we've seen before, where it's a team that definitely has that ability to score on the attacking end. But the defense, that's where it kind of left a lot to desire, and unfortunately, those are the Galaxy team that doesn't really go too far into the playoffs. And also, I think this is also the reason why it seems like maybe the Galaxy, their playoff hope is definitely they started to fade away because again, this is a big game for them. You just kind of feeling they had to win this game against the Timbers if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. I mean, they're still alive, but it is a very small chances even if they do have a game in hand. So early on, Yoshida would hit it wide from the corner, but in the 5th minute, Moreno would score for the Timbers as he scored from Asprilla to make it 1-0 in favor of the Portland Timbers. I gotta say, Miles Joseph, he has done an incredible job for the Portland Timbers. And I know maybe that's just kind of the new head coach boost or new interim head coach boost that the Timbers have getting, but honestly, I don't think any Timbers fan would care. Miles Joseph has done a really good job, and we have seen before where when an interim head coach has done a great job on an interim basis, they can get promoted as the head coach. And I have a feeling the Timbers are maybe thinking about that because what Miles Joseph has done to this team ever since taking charge of a sinking ship that Savarese occupied. This team has definitely been flying and are finally starting your typical Portland Timbers second half resurgence that we've seen them go through time and time again. So in the 10th minute, though, the Galaxy does equalize, and one key thing about this game is Leeds is not safe in this game, especially when the Timbers takes the lead, because just 5 minutes later, Eric Zavaleta would score from Douglas Costa to tie the game up at 1 apiece. I believe that's Zavaleta's first goal for the LA Galaxy, and little did we know that he would have a career night and a night that I don't think I've ever seen a player had this kind of night before in an MLS game. But that goal probably shouldn't have happened if it wasn't for some bad defending from the set piece from the Timbers. Yeah, that was a big problem for the Timbers in this game. I mean, as bad as the Galaxy defense was, man, the Timbers defense, especially on the set pieces, was pretty diabolical throughout this game. In the 17th minute, Sharpwood puts it wide from close range before Boy hits one right to Bingham. The momentum was definitely with the Galaxy. They were pressing to try to get the lead. But in the 38th minute, the Timbers would get the lead back as it's Zavaleta that is the unfortunate one that scored an own goal here. And I mean, wrote Yeimar would be proud of that moment because remember how earlier this season, well, actually not earlier this season, but just a month ago when Yeimar scored a goal for the Seattle Sounder against Minnesota, but also score an own goal for Minnesota to tie the game up, and he pretty much scored for both team, and we always have to say the saying Yeimar given, Yeimar taken, and it seems like in this case it's Zavaleta given, Zavaleta taken, but that wouldn't be the last goal that he would be score in this game, Eric Zavaleta, because just as I said about the Timbers after taking the lead 5 minutes in, their lead quickly evaporated, and once again in a 5 minute spell, as in the 43rd minute, Douglas Costa would score from Raheem Edwards to make it free to or actually not made it 3-2. It actually ties the game up at 2 apiece. There was a lot of goal scoring, so apologies if I kind of got confused with the goal scoring there. But yeah, that ties the game up at 2 apiece. And then in the first minute of stoppage time, there it is. Eric Zavaleta. He would score for the second time tonight, or shall I say the third time tonight, from Douglas Costa to give the Galaxy a 3-2 lead. And I know this is not an official name, but I'm just going to call this the Immaculate Hat Trick. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think I've seen a player been able to score 2 goals for his team, but also score an own goal and basically completes that. Or maybe the other way around where he score a goal, but unfortunately score 2 own goals for the other team. But here it is, Eric Zavaleta. Doing the immaculate hat trick here, scoring twice for his team, but also gifting one for their opposition. But most importantly, the Galaxy took the lead for the first time heading into the second half. Now in the second half, they try to build up on the lead. At least Yoshida tried to do so, but he puts it wide from close range. Before on the other end, Bond would deny Mora on the header from the set pieces. And again, apparently no one can defend set pieces in this game. There was some really bad set piece defending for both of these teams. Bravo would then puts it high from long range, but then the 75th minute, Felipe Mora would put the ball into the back of net. So yeah, the game was tied up at 3 apiece. McGraw then trying to make it 4-3, but he hits it high from, guess what? The set pieces. I mean, if that one went in, I mean, it just kind of sums up the story because nobody can defend set pieces in this game. On the other end, Blanco would then miss wide from long range. There was no doubt the momentum was with the Timbers. They were trying to grab all 3 points late in this game, but unfortunately, they had to settle for a point in this one. As, yeah, in the end, a bit of a wild one we saw down in Carson as the Galaxy and the Portland Timbers play to a 3-3 draw. And I would also like to say that I don't think a lot of people should be surprised by the fact that these two teams play to a high scoring affair, because there's just something about both of these teams when they play against each other. There's going to be goals that is going to be scoring. And lo and behold, we saw it again in this one. I mean, it's not as crazy as what we saw a couple years ago when I think the Timbers won like 5-2 against the Galaxy, but still, There was definitely some goals that being scored, and also some pretty optional defending we saw in this game, especially from the set pieces. But the shots in this one, 10 shots for the 12 that the Timbers had, 4 shots on goal for the 5 that the Galaxy had, 6 shots off target for the 3 that the Galaxy had. Both teams had 2 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, 52% possession compared to 48% possession that the Timbers had. And like I said, for the Galaxy, that this is definitely not the result that they were hoping for. I mean, I know the only good news is that at least since most of the team above them didn't get the resort, they're still stay within distance. But you just kind of had a sense that the Galaxy got to figure their defensive issue out. I mean, the fact that they have conceded 9 goals in the last three games, despite scoring 11 in the last, or actually not 11, but 10 in the last 3 games. I mean, it's entertaining for neutral to watch, but if you're a Galaxy fan, that has to be very frustrated to see that you're basically seeing 2021 all over again, a team that can attack at will, but when it comes to defending, that can leave a lot to be desired. So we'll see whether they can fix that. And again, the other good news is at least they do still have a game in hand over the team that is currently above the red line, which I think it's Dallas. That's the team that's above the red line, but they need to win that game in hand if they want to close that gap within 3 points. I mean, if they don't win that game in hand, they'll still be 6 point behind, and they're definitely running out of time in terms of trying to make it to the playoffs. That being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last 2 games to finish off the review for match week number 35. So moving on, we have Vancouver versus DC United. So this is the first game for Vancouver, playing back at home for the first time since that 7 game road trip, and unfortunately they weren't able to get all 3 points in this one. And that for DC, this is definitely going to be a resort where they could look back and say that, well, at least we're still in the hunt in terms of making the playoffs. So it didn't get off to a great start for them. As 2 minutes into this game, guess who? Ryan White have scored from Ryan Gall here. It happened again. I mean, this has to be the most combination that we have seen so far by anybody or buddy right now in the league. In fact, I think throughout the broadcast they said that these two have connected the most out of anybody in the league right now, and I'm not surprised because it feels like every single week I said that when the Whitecaps score, it's probably going to be scored from Brian White, and Ryan Gall is the one that gets the assist. But that being said, that is also the 4th time this season that Vancouver has taken the lead inside 2 minutes. So yeah, if you are a Vancouver Whitecaps fan, make sure you don't or make sure you don't get into the stadium late to watch your team play, because this is a team that has known to score some early goals, and they did it again here to make it 1-0 in favor of the Whitecaps. But that lead wouldn't last long, because in the 11th minute, Benteke would score from Kudibietro to tie the game up at 1 apiece. But yeah, this was a gift from Takaoka, and as good as he's been this season, this is definitely a moment he would not want to look back, because he gave it straight to Ted KDB. And yeah, I mean, that was relatively easy. And give credit to Ted KDB here. I mean, he could have easily shoot that one, but he decided to be unselfish, played it right to Benteke. And as much as Benteke has been inconsistent in terms of his finishing, he's not going to miss that. I mean, that was an empty net. Probably the easiest goal he have scored, or at least one of his easiest goals he'll score in his career. And yeah, that ties the game up at 1 apiece. We then go through a spell up here where not much really happened. There wasn't really a lot of chances. Santos would puts it high from long range before he hits one right to Takaoka in the 38th minute, and we head to halftime with this game tied up at 1 apiece. In the second half, Bono would deny White from close range before he denied Larea in the near post in the 48th minute. Veselinovic then heads it wide from close range. I thought Vancouver had the momentum early. Like they were hungry to try to retake that lead and try to do so, and they had a chance to do it in the 56th minute, because 2 minutes ago a penalty was rewarded to Vancouver as VAR deemed that Santos brought down White in the box. So Ryan Gall steps up to take the penalty, and he didn't hit this one well. I mean, Bono did get ahead to this, but unfortunately, just too much pace in terms of it, where Gall just about buried that one to retake the lead for the Vancouver Whitecaps. But just like the first goal that they scored, and just like the previous game that I said between the Timbers and the LA Galaxy, whoever takes the lead, that lead does not last long, because just 6 minutes later, Mateus Klick would score, I think, only his second goal this season for DC. I mean, he's been assisting a lot, but not really a guy that's known for his goal scoring. And yeah, just like the first one he has scored, he scored this one off of an absolute banger, though you could argue that, he was a little bit fortunate because it took a deflection when he hits that one off the volley, and Takaoka was completely like flat-footed when that is happened. So yeah, that ties the game up at two apiece. Perini then missed wide off of a lightning counterattack as DC was trying to give Vancouver a little taste of their own medicine, but DC was definitely now the one that has the momentum. They were pressing to try to get the lead, though. Bono did deny a mare from close range before White did heads it wide from close range. But yeah, in the end, it ends on or even in this game, and I think rightfully so because it was a relatively even play game. But the shots in this one, 9 shots for the 10 that DC had, 3 shots on goal for the 6 that Vancouver has, 2 shots off target for the 4 that DC had, 3 shots that was blocked for the 1 that Vancouver has, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that Vancouver has in this game. So yeah, for DC again, if they want to stay in the playoff race, they had to get at least a point out of this game, and they did exactly that. And for Vancouver, while they're still sitting relatively comfortable in the playoff position, I mean, I think they're 5 points above the red line with 3 games to go. I think if they can get a win, they're pretty much clinch themselves into the playoffs. But if they want to have home field advantage, yeah, this is definitely not the resort that they were hoping for, especially now that they do have a relatively heavy home schedule to finish the season, as this is only the first of 3 out of the last 4 that is going to be playing at BC Place. With that being said, moving on into the last game of this match week and the only Sunday game between LAFC versus RSL, and I feel like I saw this one coming. I feel like I saw it coming in a way that remember how when LAFC decided to sell Chicharango to Pachuca, with just a year later he would eventually come back to MLS and join RSL, and we thought, yeah, that's gonna come back to haunt LAFC in a big way. Yeah, it definitely did in this game. As yeah, it turns out that that guy that scored tons of goals for LAFC would come back to haunt his old team, and especially John Thornton of making a really bad mistake of decided to move on from him. Now, early on, LAFC had tons of possession, but really not much to show for. And keep in mind, LAFC coming into this game, they were heading into this game 3 games without scoring a goal. We've seen this before with LAFC where they go through a bit of a goal drought, but I think this is probably the most serious one that they've gone through, and probably the most concerning one considering that we're about to get ready for playoff time, and if they want to defend their championship, they got to snap out of this goal drought that they're currently in right now. But in the 17th minute, Tillman would miss Hyde on the header before McMath denied Bawanga on the free kick. LAFC was definitely ramping the pressure, and I thought RSL was pinned deep. Like early on, at least I thought LAFC was going to dominate this game, and RSL would have absolutely no chance against LAFC. And keep in mind, coming into this game, RSL have only beat LAFC twice in the history of these two meetings. This has always been a meeting that's been very one-sided and heavily in favor of LAFC. And you were thinking early on, that seems like it was kind of the case with the way that LAFC was just kind of bossing this game. Though in the 28th minute, Ojeda did have RSL first shot, but he puts that one wide before Oliveira would hits one right to McMath. They mentioned LAFC now approach 300 minutes without scoring a single goal, and this is in all competition, even going back to that 0-0 draw that they had against Tigres in the Campeones Cup. Bawanga then missed wide from close range before Ilie would hit one right to McMath, and we had to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. Now in the second half, Crepeau had to deny Arango, but it go recycle back for RSL, and Gomez had a chance on the recycle play, but his shot was denied by Crepeau. I thought RSL was on the front foot. Like, RSL, it could be easy for them to just kind of sit deep and just kind of hope for a 0-0 draw, but credit to them and credit to Pablo Mastroianni's name, and especially with how RSL has been playing this season on the road. They've been one of the best road team this season. They're not going to just lay down and just hope for a draw. They're going to be aggressive to go for the 3 points. They were on the front foot, and there was tons of space to operate in the midfield because LAFC was leaving just way too much gaps early in this one. Though McMath did tip Vela's shot as he was slipped on the turf. I mean, I don't know how Vela was still able to generate enough power to force McMath a save, but he did it there though. Bawanga then hits one right to McMath before Ordaz heads it wide from close range. LAFC continue to press for the opener, but we have now approached 330 minutes since they have scored There you go. And you just wonder, with the way that when the teams are piling on the pressure, but the fact that they've gone so long since they last score a goal, is that started to get in the heads of these players. I mean, it definitely probably has now, where we have started to see these players started to press a little bit too hard, or the fact that that goal drought is getting into their mind, and that we talk about how strikers, when they're in a goal drought, it seems like the net is smaller when they look at it, when in reality it's not that small. Feels like maybe that's kind of the case for these LAFC attackers. It feels like the net is very small right now whenever they try to shoot. And Lauren Beho in the 72nd minute, with all those wasteful chances for LAFC, it comes back to haunt them. And again, I would like to say that this performance is also kind of very similar to what we see in the 2021 season, where we've seen this before, where LAFC dominate the game and they have all the possession, but more times than not, we have seen them lose the game, or even get a draw out of the game, because they aren't able to find their clinical finishing, and they were punished because of it. Because in the 72nd minute, as I said before, you knew Chicho Arango was going to come back to BMO Stadium and score a goal against his former team, and he did here, as he scored from Rubin to make it 1-0. And I know Arango is going to grab the headlines, and also credit to him, he didn't celebrate, rightfully so, because when Chicho Arango was announced, you can clearly see the LAFC fans was giving a great ovation. It's pretty clear that they still have not forgot about Chicho Arango and still loves him down in LA. But I'm pretty sure not a lot of them, or if any LAFC fans would have loved him, the fact that he scored against his former team here. But as I said, I know the headlines is going to be that, but let's not discount Rubio Rubin. What a cross that was, and for a guy that has been having problems scoring, and a guy that's not known for making an assist or being the playmaker. I mean, that was kind of a little surprised that Rubio Rubin was able to hit a beautiful ball into the box. But yeah, it worked out. It gives RSL a 1-0 lead. Then 10 minutes later, Muswaski also looked to try to score against his former team. Forgot that he's also now with RSL, as we have a couple of LAFC former player now playing for RSL, but he hits that one right to Crapo. I mean, if Muswaski scored there, LAFC fans are going to be ripping the heads of their GM, because of what has happened. I mean, not so much with Miswaski, but mostly probably with Chicho Arango. Though in the 85th minute, Vela did blast high from close range. I mean, that shot just kind of sums up LAFC night and their last couple of games. It also sums up Carlos Vela's season. I mean, you can clearly see he's probably on his last leg in terms of potentially still being regular for this LAFC team, or even maybe on the bench, because Father Time has really started to catch up for Carlos Vela this season. Savarino then missed wide from close range before Tillman blasted high from long range, and then McMath had to tip Bawanga shot cross over the bar there. So Bawanga was trying to do a little Randall layout, but didn't quite work out that time, and it also didn't quite work out for LAFC. This is now the fourth straight game that they have not scored a goal in this one, as they lose 1-0 in this game against RSL. Only the third time in this all-time meeting that RSL was able to get a win against LAFC. And the shots in this one, despite LAFC pretty much dominate every single category, 20 shots for the 7 that RSL had, 7 shots on goal for the 4 that RSL had, 2 shots that was off target for the 8 that LAFC had, 5 shots that was blocked for the 1 that RSL had, and possession-wise, 68% possession compared to 32% possession. How many times we have said before, when you're not clinical in terms of your finishing, it's going to come back to haunt you, because the opposition will usually show that clinical finishing, which RSL definitely did in this one, and that was kind of the difference. And again, this is a huge concern if you're LAFC. The fact that they need to eventually end this goal drought. Like they got to end this goal drought if they want to build some momentum heading into the playoffs. This is kind of a little similar to what I remember a couple of years ago, when NYCFC also had a bit of a goal drought, and then eventually they snapped out of it. And I think, if wasn't that the same season that they eventually went on to win MLS Cup, or was that the year when they went to the Eastern Conference Final? Either way, eventually when they did snap out of that goal drought, they went on a bit of a good run to end the season and carry that into the playoffs. That's what LAFC is hoping to do so. But again, it's not easy to do when you're still in a goal drought, and that, yeah, we'll see whether they can do so. I mean, the good news is they're playing Minnesota, and Minnesota is an absolute free fall right now. So maybe that might be the game that they can end their goal drought. But as long as they don't end this goal drought, I can't imagine LAFC is going to do well in terms of their title defense this season as they head into the playoffs. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at all the game from match week number 35. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the 6 games that I mentioned to finish off the review for match week number 35. Remember how I said a couple of weeks ago that we seen the last of the midweek action? Turns out that was a lie, because looks like we're going to have 12 games that's going to happen in the middle of the week on Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last time we're going to see some midweek action, because we're now actually into October now, and when we head to October, you know what that means. It means decision day is approaching, and we're about to get to probably my most anticipated time of the MLS season. That, of course, is playoffs. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.